Wall Street Unplugged looks beyond the regular headlines heard on mainstream financial media to bring you unscripted interviews and breaking commentary direct from Wall Street right to you on Main Street.
What's going on out there? It's August 28th. I'm Frank Curzio, it's the Wall Street Unplugged podcast. We're breaking the headlines and tell you what's really moving these markets. Today, pretty big deal. Can't remember a time with one single report from a company was this important. And the name of that company who reports after the close today, it's going to change the world, is Five Below. They actually do report today. We'll get to that in a minute. But it's Nvidia, right? Nvidia, it's all over the media. It's all over every place. I'm bringing in Daniel Creech here to join me in the Wednesday podcast. It's really cool. Daniel, what's going on? I'm going to talk about Nvidia. How's everything going?
What's happening, Frank? Everything is good. Yes, you're right. You had me. I was all in on Five Below, so I don't know what to do about
I think
that.
there's a better and easier trade on Five Below than Nvidia because I've been so wrong trying to trade Nvidia. I feel like it's a comparison to my Super Bowl picks, which if you're new to this, by the way, I always
goodness, don't be bullish.
Analyze like crazy. And the Super Bowl, it's a big thing. And I tell everyone it's the easiest bet ever. Just bet the opposite. And I think, I want to say 10 out of 13. I'm wrong on I was right with the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl, but I also picked them to beat Kansas City as well and lost that one. But when it comes to Nvidia going ahead, the expectations are really so high. It's insane. But, you know, I've liked NVIDIA for a year now. I said it's a much better buy, compared to some of the other technology companies. And I just highlighted how, when you look at valuation and people look at P's, Daniel, you look at Apple trading at 30 times forward earnings, Microsoft trading at 31 times forward earnings, and right now NVIDIA is trading at 34 times forward earnings. Those are all expensive multiples if you look at a PE by itself, which I tell everyone it's the worst thing they could do. It's all a matter of how much the company's growing by. So if Apple, Microsoft are growing by 20% plus, it's different. They're not. Microsoft's growing by 12%, Apple's growing by 9%. You know what NVIDIA is growing by? And again, they all have like the same multiple, 31, 32, but NVIDIA is growing earnings by 110%. So that was my thesis for the last year, saying, if you're going to buy a technology stock, NVIDIA is a much better buy than Microsoft and Apple. That could change today. So I guess my question to you, Daniel, is what is the magical trade? I know you have it. Like, you buying calls ahead of this thing? No. Are you buying puts? What are you doing? Because I have a feeling you're going to be right on this. Putting pressure on you.
I'm confused on this because I don't see how, if I had a gun to my head, I wouldn't play the options because I'm not smart enough to play options. I would go long if I had a gun to my head because there's no way they have a bad quarter, in my opinion. They're not going to report that they missed by XYZ, in my opinion. The issue is, and we've talked about this before, is how great is the guidance going to be? And if you put your shoes in management teams, what do you have to gain by blowing, why would you not kind of underpromise and overdeliver is my point. Mm-hmm. And so to your point, we've had a solid year about this. And I'm trying to ignore, I thought it was fake. I thought it was AI. So the CEO has sold over $500 million. And, you can sell, his stocks run up. I'm not blaming him for that. I'm not saying, oh no. But I do think it's wild because you have a CEO that sold a ton of stock, Frank, over the last year. Mm-hmm. More importantly, he signed a woman's bra not too long ago in a fanfare that shows you just how ridiculous stocks are.
He did.
And since then, that was basically the top of the stock. Now, my point is that I don't think the quarter is going to be bad. I don't think guidance is going to be bad, but guidance is going to be a letdown in the street's expectation because, Frank, unless you just come out and blow out earnings and expectations. But again, why would you do that? Why would you do that if you are management right there? So I hope that from a stock market's perspective, I hope this is kind of a much ado about nothing. I think they're going to beat. I think they're going to give solid guidance, but I don't think it's going to be that big an event. This is the same person, me, who said Joe Biden was going to do well during the first presidential debate. I thought they were going to have him so jacked up he was going to do well, and he's out of the race now. So maybe the only person worse than the Super Bowl picks is me on this NVIDIA trade. But if I had a gun in my head, I would play it to the long side because I don't think that these types of momentum, this being AI, ends abruptly in one day.
Yeah, and
yeah.
Look.
What say you, Frank?
I'm looking at this, and here's my perspective. When I look at NVIDIA, one of the most important, I don't know if I've seen a more important conference call when it comes to an individual stock that's going to determine whether we see not just a sell-off in U.S. stocks, but a global sell-off. And we could actually see that because AI has been the driving force behind a market where we're seeing the economy clearly slow across the board. We're seeing it every place, almost every place. Consumers, you're seeing it housing. I mean, you look at housing, look where housing rates are down, the lowest levels in over a year, and we didn't see mortgage applications pick up. And we're seeing houses even go at all-time highs, have reported, but here you're seeing a pullback in a lot of discretionary stocks. Consumer will cover those in a little while, but there's lots of evidence of a big slowdown, and AI has been the driver, the spending behind AI. So the quarter is going to be great. The guidance, they have the Blackwell chip that which has delays, but I will tell you this: a lot comes with sentiment. We're going to talk a lot about this when it comes to sentiment, because this is how you pick winners in this type of stock market. It's all about sentiment. It's what are the expectations going in? Because the expectations right now are for the company to report great earnings, have a beat. In fact, the last 3 quarters, Nvidia did that. They beat on earnings, they beat on sales, and they raised guidance. They raised guidance significantly. So, how much are they going to raise guidance that's going to surprise people to the upside? It's going to be very hard because right now there's 60 analysts covering the stock. I want you to break it down, Daniel, of what do you think the buys, holds, and sells are between 60?
Nah.
How many buys do you think there are
15.
out of 60? Huh?
15.
How many analysts believe there's a buy rating on?
Yeah.
Has a buy rating on?
It's got to be the darling, so I would just assume it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's 56 of the 60 analysts have a buy rating.
Oh, I thought you said 16. You said 60.
No, it's 60.
Oh, okay.
So 56.
You probably thought I was nuts thinking only 15
No, I know you know if you said 16.
It's your New York
but I
accent,
know,
Frank. Come on, we got to speak clearly.
Yeah, I know when you said, I probably heard, but 56 buys, 4 holds, no sells.
Yeah.
It doesn't get more bullish than that on any stock. The expectations are very, very high where the company could beat, and maybe you don't see the stock go up as much. But I will say this. The last 3 quarters, as I mentioned, they beat on earnings per share, sales, and raised guidance. And playing Monday morning quarterback, which we all love to do because we're all geniuses after the fact. Leading up to those earning calls, there was some things that you could have saw. There's a few tells that predicted Nvidia was going to have a blowout quarter, and here they were. Taiwan Semi reported great numbers, highlighted the massive demand they're still seeing for AI chips. They just said that. Remember, almost all the S&P 500 companies reported outside of NVIDIA, right? They're almost all done. So NVIDIA's after them. So we have all these companies. Taiwan blew out the numbers and said, we're still seeing this massive demand. The major consumers of AI chips, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, Alphabet. This is what they did, right? They reported solid numbers and said CapEx for AI is not slowing. That's what they said leading up to those quarters for NVIDIA. They all confirmed that a few weeks ago. Not one company did I see in the S&P 500 who reported earnings. Not one. And we pay attention a lot. We go over a lot of earnings. I haven't seen one company. If you have, please send it to me. I like to be wrong, and I'll come out and say it. I haven't seen one company say this, that they're mentioning of seeing any signs of a slowdown in spending on AI. In fact, S&P 500 companies, when you pull it together and you look at the conference calls, and I think it was Goldman or Financial Times reported this. I don't want to take credit for it. The S&P 500 company said they plan on spending $50 billion plus on CapEx on hyperscale just for the next quarter.
Yeah.
So the trends are there. We have to see, okay, what's going to go on with the Blackwell chip. It doesn't seem like the analysts all talk to Jensen. Jensen has to come out extremely positive. If he doesn't and they happen to miss, which I really don't see that happening if they happen to miss, you're not just going to see a sell-off in the U.S. markets. It's going to be a global sell-off, and it'll be more than 5% because you would see names. I mean, just look at the QQQ. It's, I think it's 13% of that is represented by NVIDIA and Broadcom. And Broadcom is going to take a hit too, right? Because it's in the same sector. So you're going to look at a pretty steep sell-off if this happens. I don't see it happening. But also, even with a strong beat and raise, it's going to be hard to push this stock much, much higher with expectations very, very high. Although I will say, for the first time since 2022, again, access that we have data to, which is awesome, which I love sharing for you with expensive research engines that we use. It's the first time that hedge funds actually were net sellers of NVIDIA. Going in. So we're seeing them light up. We're seeing more lighten up their positions. We saw that, and NVIDIA has come back strongly since then. And you can even see that in the 13Fs, which Daniel and I covered in the report. People lighten up on some of the large technology stocks. However, the retail investors are betting heavy on this. So it's going to be an interesting quarter.
So gun to your head, up or down tomorrow? I said up. I'm not using options. I'm terrible at those.
Gun to my head, I think they report very strong earnings. I think they report a really big guide, and I think the stock is going to is going to be flat to downish, very little. I would love to say it's going to crash or it's going to go up 20%. I don't think you're going to see those. The expectations are just way freaking high right now. Yeah. And on the downside, there's just no indication that anyone has slow spending, which is why all the analysts who probably talk to Jensen. I mean, let's be real, right? They're not going to you don't raise or lower your target price into a quarter unless you talk to the CEO first, because you can lose your freaking job. If you lower your target and say, listen, I'm expecting bad things, and Nvidia blows it out and the stock goes to 160, you're going to lose your job. These guys want to keep their job, right? They're smart. They're like politicians. They're going to say whatever you want. This way, they keep their jobs. So a lot of companies have raised those numbers going in, and a lot of that was on the back of Taiwan Semi reporting very, very strong, healthy growth, and also all the major companies that spend billions and billions of dollars saying that, hey, you know what? We're not slowing down spending anytime soon. Now, the key levels, which technicals, 136, that's the resistance to the upside, and 116 is support and the downside. If it breaks those levels, you're going to see, again, not just U.S. markets, global markets are going to move if you see those levels broken on any side. What I will say is I like seeing this separation in this industry. NVIDIA has been kicking ass. They've been the industry leader. AMD's finally doing okay. I told you that they're not an AI play yet. They still have to spend a ton on CapEx in order to catch up, which is why their earnings aren't going to be that great. But you're seeing the separation where Supermicro, that's down over 20% today. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that's Hindenburg came out. We talked about them with Icon last week, and these guys have struck again. Now, it did help them. I didn't read the report. They said they were short or bearish on the stock, and then the stock comes out, the management team, and they delay their quarterly filings.
Did they delay their quarterly filings?
Good, Frank,
wow, I didn't even see that.
That's good for a quick 10%.
I didn't even see that they delayed, because I know they said they have accounting. They highlight some of the accounting measures, aggressive accounting measures and stuff. And I was surprised because the stock's gotten crushed. Just to put this in perspective, it was $1,200. Supermicro. It was $1,200. So it had a market cap over $70 billion. It's like $23 billion right now. And this was just 6 months ago. It's at $450, $1,200 to $450 today. It's even below that, because I think last time I looked, it's even lower now. Actually, I want to look right now. Hold on. This is going to be fun. Looking at this name. So Supermicro is down. Wow, it's at 400. It's down 25% right now. I didn't see that. They came out this morning. Good job. I didn't see that.
Its stock split yet, right?
No, and that's the thing. They don't have to do it now because this stock's already down. So all the retail investors are going to be able to buy it. They come buy at 1,200, 400. Maybe they should get rid of the 10 for 1, I think, stock buyback, whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, that news for a good 6-month period was pushing stocks up significantly, Chipotle for a little while, and that stock has come off a lot. It's worked for... man, how many companies? What was it? Alphabet, Apple, a lot of these companies. So let's see what happens going forward. It's just, the buyback announcements in order to get a nice boost for your stock price, I think those days are over. But with this company, maybe you don't even have to do it anymore, because you're down to 405. It was $1,229, $1,229 at Smith Micro. So you're seeing this company sell off. And I love when I see separation within an industry, because what do we see? We saw all these names do great and skyrocket because they're like, we're all getting into AI chips, we're all building them and shit like that. And NVIDIA was really the only one that was really, really seeing a massive benefit. But now Smith Micro negative. Look at Intel, holy cow. I almost felt bad trashing Intel 6 months ago, but I'm so happy, and hopefully you listened to me and didn't go near that stock. I've never seen a worse management team in my life. I don't think the stock has hit bottom yet. I talk about activist investors shaking up the company and the board. I think that's a great idea. I think when they come in, look, you have a lot of stuff built. You have a company that's not going out of business, but it's just been horrible. And I think it's very easy to extract value there with the right management team and saying the right things and just following through. But you probably need some real executives running that company. I still can't believe, Daniel, that the government handed this fucking company $8.5 billion of our taxpayers' money for the CHIPS Act. For the CHIPS Act, right? To build these fab plants. Now, think about that when you want your government to run your business for you, because whoever did that in the real business world would get fired and be an outcast of the industry forever. They wouldn't be allowed into that industry forever. But when the government does that, and it does it with our money, which they don't really care about, and taxpayers' money, nobody gets fired, nobody gets questioned, there's no accountability. And, why didn't you give that money to NVIDIA? And you can say, well, NVIDIA doesn't need it. I'm sure they could use $8.5 billion for free. And they'll find amazing return on their investment and do great and hire more people, where Intel is just, this drain that you just threw our money into and just said, hey, we don't even care. And again, nobody's mentioning it, nobody cares. Those are the negatives in the chip sector. But the positives, did you see Umbrella?
No. Two quick things. So Supermicro did say they were going to delay their annual report, so that hurt them. They're down 10%. Intel, when you see a company take action to fight off activist investors, there's no way the bottom is in for me. Like that is, nothing screams more dead money than that right there.
And
I would love to buy
should.
Intel and look for this.
Yeah.
Well, to a certain extent. I mean, you're doing so piss poorly that now you're going to
they're all going to get
yourself.
thrown off the board and fired.
Well, of course.
Yeah, so that's why they're fighting.
But my point is, from
yeah.
an investor, I mean, it's tempting to look at a stock chart and think, man, this has got to be a buy soon. I just think that is going to be death by 1,000 cuts. You want to talk about a gut-wrenching, boring, excessive, just mind-numbing experience. Reading about, maybe I'm wrong, but there's no way I would touch Intel with a 10-foot pole when I see that they're going to defend their ridiculousness.
Yeah, and show me the catalyst, right? Everybody wants to go bottom fishing. Show me the catalyst. Show me these insiders, executives are buying stock like crazy. Show me, what's the catalyst that you see where Starbucks was horrible, and now you see a catalyst with the new CEO of Chipotle. I mean, there's got to be a catalyst. He still has to follow through, and it's a big job he has. I think people are just overestimating how good or how quick that turnaround is going to be. It's hard getting new customers back, especially when there's coffee on every single corner of every single block in every major city, and people have left, and it's hard to get people back, especially when you haven't really fixed the problems of why they left, which is your whole online service and digital and not having drinks ready when people are going to work and shit like that. But with Intel, and it's just... Yeah, I just be careful bottom fishing, because if you see insider buying or whatever, but I just don't see a catalyst, and you need a catalyst. It can't just be like, wow, the stock's trading it. You thought that it was incredible value before it went down 40% and they cut the dividend, right? I mean, it looked like an incredible value, but again, those earnings that you're looking at trading at 15 times or 13 times forward earnings, and compared to Nvidia at 35 times forward earnings, it's the growth that matters in these companies.
I remember thinking, man, I'll just park money in here and earn a great dividend and let this ride out. And if I would have done that, I would have been absolutely miserable on a park bench.
I can't tell you how many people told me that they love Intel 3 months ago.
Yeah.
That they think is a great buy. And even people within the industry have said, Intel's doing lots of good things. And I told them all the same thing. I said, I wouldn't touch that fucking stock with a 10-foot pole until I see evidence, a quarter or two of them turning around, everything in CapEx should be going towards AI. Every single thing. You could probably poach anyone right now, because your stock is so low. If you give them stock incentives where they'll be worth $100 million, you have that opportunity because your stock is so low, and say, listen, if you turn this thing around, this is what's going to happen. Poach one of the top guys anywhere. Even at the big technology firms, even at Taiwan Semi, you can get almost anyone there as a turnaround specialist where your stock is, and say, if this thing doubles from here, which means it has to go back to the price it was a month ago, probably a month and a half ago. If it doubles or triples, you are going to make an absolute fortune with your options. That's a very enticing offer to get someone in there. That's how you do it, and that's why you want activist investors to go in there. People don't like them, and they may fire employees or whatever. If you're an investor of a stock and you want your stock to go higher, that's what these guys do. They may break up the company. They may do some, again, ethic-wise, you might not like it. If you like money, this is what you want, because these guys are personally putting a ton of money in their stock. They're taking a big stake, and they want the stock to go higher, which means their interests are aligned with yours. Right now, Intel's management team, their interests are not aligned with yours. You can't buy a stock like that right now.
No.
So then looking at chips that were positive.
Sorry, I got you off track. What's Ambarella?
I mean,
I saw it was popping, but that was it.
Yeah, it's popping. It's up 15% today. They raised their revenue guidance for next quarter. They raised their revenue guidance to 80 million for next quarter, Daniel. 80 million from 69 million. That's a very huge for next quarter, not for the year, for next quarter, right? Now, still off 20% from his 52-week high, so expectations were a little bit low, but what a move. And I love the commentary behind this, because it's based on very strong demand for its AI inference chips. Remember that word, inference. It's important when you look at AI, because you have large language models, which automation, help you write, that's what a lot of companies are using AI for right now. They're not really using it for inference. This is what the biggest companies in the world are using it for. They have the data. They want to be able to predict. And their leading chip, called Edge AI, is fascinating. And it makes these guys a sleeper in the AI space, because their chips focus on face detection. And that should scare the shit out of you.
Yeah, it does. It
does, and it should. And what's going to scare the shit out of you even more is when you go to the CES. I saw this. And not only does it track your face recognition, they're able to determine your mood. They predict what your mood is based on just looking at your face. And it's real. And I've tested this stuff at CES for the last 2 years. Now, especially in cars, Internet of Things, everything, private security, all this stuff. They're buying up these chips like crazy. Remember, this was a company that was a great play on GoPro back then. That was really good on 360 cameras, and kind of went up and down with GoPro. But these guys have done a fantastic job. able to track your mood is a big deal to anyone and any company in the world that's looking to sell a product. I mean, how important is that?
Yeah.
So the inference is predictability. Okay. Again, large language models and stuff like that, helping with automation. Inference is the learning part, the predictability part. That data is literally worth trillions of dollars. That's why every major tech company is spending billions and billions, and people are like, oh, they're not going to get a rate of return. They already are making money off their investments. If you don't think so, look at their margins, look how much they cut costs. When have you seen companies ever where their stock near all-time highs that are laying off so many employees? This is what big tech is doing. Their margins are going higher. Their earnings are going higher. Their sales are going higher. And you look at their expenses, they're making money off of their AI investments already because they have millions, if not billions, in the case of Meta. Billions. Half the world almost has an account through, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, whatever. Billions. You have billions of people using your products, and now you have all the data on your customers dating back for over a decade. This is why they're spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on this technology to figure out not just how we track these people, which they've been doing for a long time, it's how they think and where they're going. And that's why you look at Umbrella. I mean, really good name in the space, and I think that stock has a chance to go much higher. I wouldn't be buying it. It probably was, seeing a little bit of a short squeeze here. Let it come in a little, but man, I mean, they are actually benefiting. Look at Broadcom, killing it in AI. That was thanks to their purchase in VMware, and they're now just got the ByteDance account, which is TikTok, which switched from Nvidia Broadcom because of China chips and stuff like that, and they had a switch. But AI now accounts for 25% of their total sales. To put in that perspective, it was 19%, Daniel, last quarter. Now it's 25%. So many people are out there saying, well, AI, they're not benefiting business. You're not seeing. This is what we look at. What are the companies? There's a difference between saying AI benefits you and going and looking at the revenue and the bottom lines is saying, no, it is benefiting. We've been doing this for a while, and now it's benefiting when everyone else is just starting to get in it. There's a big separation within this industry with the chips. You're seeing it. And let's see what happens in NVIDIA. If NVIDIA goes high, you can see most of the sector go a lot higher if the stock goes higher after the bell, but there's clear winners and losers in the space. I like to see that as a stock analyst, where I hate where everything in one industry just goes higher. You want to see the separation. That's where analysis comes in, and Broadcom's killing it, Nvidia's killing it, and Ambarella's killing it. And you know what? Intel is horrible. And look at, man, Supermicro, holy shit, $1,200, over $1,200. It's now $400. And man, I don't know how you buy that stock when they just actually did that with their guidance and going to reinstate, especially after you have a big short report coming out. So it's pretty crazy. Now, let's get into some fun stuff, which is Zuckerberg.
Well, yeah.
You know what? You lead with this. You get
well, we got to get
stuff.
political here, because I thought the biggest political speech out of the Republican National Convention and Democrat National Convention actually came last Friday from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Frank, did you listen to this or did you read this at all? My mouth fell open and hit the floor when I heard him speak. I knew he was going to be dovish. He wasn't going to rock the apple cart. He wasn't going to say anything like, hey, we're going to hike in September at our next meeting, because remember, they're lazy and they take August off. But I did not think that he was going to come out and say, Frank, the time has come for policy to adjust. Mm-hmm. Were you expecting that? He literally came out and said, we are cutting rates in September, and we are going to cut as much as the data depends on it. That is significant to me. Yeah. That is why the markets absolutely went gangbuster green on Friday, and rightfully so. You have the guy behind the Wizard of Oz curtain in the Willy Wonka chocolate factory pulling the levers, telling you with his megaphone and all of his little minions, and I say that I respect, I like minions, especially whatever movie they come from.
Yep.
Despicable.
You just named a bunch of movies. Wizard of Oz, what else?
Well, those are the ones I stay with, because they describe our country so well. The time has come for policy to adjust. Unemployment is no longer a risk to inflation. Inflation is going down with, how did he say that? He has confidence that inflation is going back to 2%. Housing is at all-time high. Stocks are damn near at all-time highs, and we are going to start cutting rates. Frank, a little bit of a victory lap. We have been on this path of melt up to the rate cut. Yes, you've had pullbacks. We've been talking about buying certain pullbacks. We've gotten burned a little bit, but overall, we have been right on this melt up to the rate cut. Now that rates are about to get cut, should we be cautious, or does politics trump everything going in a little bit further?
I think politics trumps everything going a little further. It definitely does. I mean, when you're looking at I am surprised and not surprised. I mean, we all knew he was going to be dovish. He was extremely more dovish than anybody could imagine, I think, than anybody predicted. It makes sense because, remember, the president hires this guy for the job, and lowering rates is great no matter who gets in. So, it could be expected. I think everybody knew they were going to start. There's 100%, before the meeting, there was a 100% chance he was going to cut in September. So he just, confirmed it and said, basically, we're going to be aggressive and data dependent, but it was extremely dovish. I mean, it's not too much of a surprise, and the markets were surprised by it. But when you take a step back and look at it after the fact, which is what we're all great at, analyzing everything, it does make sense, right? It does make sense why you'd be super aggressive right there, especially highlighting on something where there's no event going on that day other than Jackson Hole. There's nothing else going on in the markets, no real big earnings going on. Everybody was focusing on that, which was kind of boring. They had some great interviews on CNBC, Fox, stuff like that. But, it was just a good time where he had the stage. That was it, 100%. Here you go. And, he gave investors what they wanted to hear. With that said, we know that when the Fed starts cutting, we usually see the markets do okay for the next 25, 30 days. And then over the next year, you see a meaningful pullback. We've never seen that during an election year, though. That's never happened. So all the data, you have to look, and you just can't look at data and say, okay, well, this is going to be like this time. We do know we have a government that no matter what the fuck happens, and when the shit hits the fan, they come out and they spend money and throw it at anyone and anything to help save the market. Everyone does that. Donald Trump is definitely going to do that if the market comes down. He's going to be like, the Fed right now, you need to do, he's going to have a meeting and call out Powell and say, you better lower by at least 50 basis points, if not 100 basis points, if this market falls 20% and he gets elected. He would definitely say that. We saw Elizabeth Warren just come out and said, now's the time. 50, what did she say? 75 basis point cut right now or something? She actually came out like 2 days ago and said that. You have both sides. It's good for both sides. It takes, a lot of the tension away from your agenda or, what you plan to do over the next 4 years or whatever. And this is great, right? This is lower rates. So we never really had that where we see these big downturns and they're so quick that they're followed by immediate government stimulus. Even when the banks started going to shit, what was that, March? When we saw some of the small cap banks and what is it, New York Community and stuff. Yeah, when New York Community started coming down immediately, right? They're like, okay, we got your back. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be taxpayer dollars. Yes, it is taxpayer dollars. Even though they tell you that, and these guys are going to raise fees tremendously because that has to be that slush fund has to be funded by big banks. And what a big bank's going to do is they're going to raise rates on you, and that's why they don't pay you shit for any. Look at what they're paying. Like interest rates went from 0 to over 5%, right? Short term rates. What are they paying you on your savings account? Okay,
not
nothing.
Much. Less than a half?
Nothing, right? That's why you're seeing banks' profits at record highs, and it's insane.
Yeah.
So, I would say that the landscape right now tells me that stocks are probably going to go higher towards the end of the year. There's just too much money on the sideline still. There's a lot of money coming to this market, even foreign dollars. So the U.S. market is definitely doing, much better than everybody else in any other market out there. You're going to see the buyback window open. A lot of companies whose stock have gotten hit. And there's a lot of names, guys. Holy shit. That are down like 50, 60, 70% that you really don't know. Whether it's Walgreens or Five Below is reporting later. Just some of the natural gas stocks. I mean, you're looking at it. There's a lot of names that are down a ton that nobody's really talking about because everybody focuses on the top half, the top 10 largest technology stocks. But it definitely will be interesting.
I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think you hit the nail on the head with why this time is different. And that makes for good headlines. And you can say, oh, well, that was, we've had debt and perma bears guys screaming about that for a long time. What is difference here, and I'm not trying to take a cheap shot here, but Steve Leishman from CNBC and also Fed Chair Powell from his speech on Friday, the two biggest things that they're being completely dishonest and or ignorant about is that this time is different because of government and deficit spending. It is almost damn near impossible to have a recession on paper when you're the Fed and all these economists that think you're so smart to look at paper numbers, GDP, everybody keeps saying, oh, well, GDP, the economy is still stronger and resilient and the consumers are still there because we're running $1.5 trillion plus deficits per year. That's never been done at the pace we're doing it for the significant or for the several years in a row like that. And to your point, it's not changing. So not to beat a dead horse, but there is no there. The reason that this time is different is because of government spending and deficit spending. If that doesn't slow significantly, then it's going to be more per usual, and that means higher stocks. Not that it's right or wrong. That's just the direction that the momentum is going. So take note of that and do not fight it too much. Next, Frank.
Even next, before we go there,
okay.
and we're going to skip to China later because a lot of news on China, how bad it was. PDD.
We got to talk about Zuck too, real quick.
Reported, PDD reported, and that's a Temu owner. They just warned, right? And that comes after, Alibaba and JD. But the reason why I want to get to China right now and jump to this is because, people say, well, and you mentioned like government spending, as long as they have a printing press, how could this end bad? How could this be, how could it end bad? And they just keep spending and spending and spending and spending whenever we have problems. The shit eventually is going to hit this fan one day. And it's getting closer because of the amount of money, the significant increase in our deficits where we need rates to come down. We need them to come down because the government just, we talk about $1 trillion in interest rate payments alone on an annual basis, which is freaking insane. But if you don't think this should get at the fan, look at China. I mean, China is a total effing disaster. And I want to thank a lot of my contacts out there. Thank you so much. Because even when I got a little bit bullish, they said, Frank, you're an idiot if you get bullish. And thank you for forcing that down my throat. Holy shit. I mean, I don't know if you guys see it. They don't really report it too much. Yes, we see, well, China. No, you have no idea how bad China is. I mean, we could see a 2 handle on their GDP print. I mean, they're saying, oh my God, it's going to be 3. Now they're going down 3.7, 3.5. You had the Financial Times citing that the central bank China is planning to issue. They have to issue the remainder of their government bond quotas by the end of the year, which is another $350 billion, which could crash yields. Some speculate it could burst China's debt bubble, which is massive. You just had BHP come out yesterday saying, one of the largest steel producers in China, and also another China steel producer, which I can't pronounce. Those two are two of the large steel producers, said that the steel industry, the downturn is going to deepen. Deepen? Holy shit. I mean, did you see that stock? I mean, we're looking at, 20-year lows of how terrible shit is. It's going to deepen from here. Like you can't. So the government's trying to do everything in its power and trying to get more people to buy stocks, trying to, lower rates, trying to do everything that they can to stimulate the economy. And nothing is working. You're looking at housing prices are still collapsing. There's zero buying equities. They can't get people to buy equities no matter what they do. Over 1 million restaurants have closed over the past 6 months. Shit that people aren't reporting. Again, it's hard because you see some YouTube videos of guys reporting. They got to be very, very careful to get thrown in jail and get their heads chopped off if they get caught reporting what they're not allowed to report. And just the context I have in an industry saying it's a lot worse than what anyone's saying. And we've seen the past couple of quarters of companies or the 13Fs where they're picking away at Alibaba, they're picking away at some of these companies, in the last 2 quarters. And I looked at that and said, holy cow. And now you're seeing a lot of these guys lighten up their load, and they should, because I don't know what the catalyst is. And that scares the shit out of me. I mean, when business is really bad for Intel, I know how Intel could turn it around. So does a lot of people. I mean, they really just have to cut costs tremendously. They have to really focus in the right spending areas and stuff and go into AI. There's an outline, like there's a plan saying this is what we have to get expenses down. It's going to be painful, whatever. We cut the dividend. It's a company that's going to survive, but you have a plan in place over the next year. I have no idea. Like, please tell me what the plan is to get China to show strong growth again, to stimulate that economy, because the government can't do it. They have been trying to do it for 2 years, and it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster, which is a shame because it's such a great nation outside of their freaking crazy government. You go to China, beautiful people there, great people. I know a lot of people, so when we talk about things being bad in certain areas, it's not that way. When we say California's a shithole, and by the way, real quick, I'm going to get way off topic here. I went to a meeting for my daughter's school. She's a junior. And they would talk about SATs and ACATs and stuff. And the guy that came in was from California. And he was telling me some of the things in their schools of how you don't need test scores now. You don't need to show your test scores.
Why? Because they're racist?
Yeah, basically, I don't even know what they put behind it. But he said the school system is so freaking crazy different there. I just don't see how you're going to have the largest technology companies are not going to move out of these areas and go someplace else, because the states, I mean, if you look at some of these states, even Wyoming, which is close by, not too far, because they're not talking about Texas or Florida and stuff like that. But still, if you're looking at companies moving from California to get better deals and lower taxes and stuff like that, I mean, big tech has been in California forever, but holy shit. I mean, you're just seeing so many things going on in California where it's like a different country over there. And again, it's a place that I love to go to. It's awesome. But he was like, I lived there, and holy cow, like it's such a difference between those schools and Florida schools and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't shock me if people were moving out of there.
Which is insane. But getting back to China is a disaster there, just to let you know. And I'm just reporting news I see and from my contacts and stuff. And if you hear anything positive, please send it to me. I'm not biased. I'm not going to be like, give me all the shit on China this way I can pound it down your throat. No, we want to find it, because there might be some some bright spots here and there that we could say, okay, well, here's a good area because we're going to be able to invest in stuff that, almost assets at 10 cents, 20 cents on the dollar. That's how much they're down. I just don't see it. And I haven't seen it for a while, which is crazy. So
do you think it's a coincidence that Canada is now following our footsteps and hiking tariffs on EVs from China, steel, different products, things like that? Do you think that's a coincidence right now? I personally don't think there are coincidences when it comes to politics.
And why do you think they're doing it?
Just to keep pushing the thumb or their boot on their neck more. Listen, communism doesn't work. You don't need Daniel Creech to say that. You can stimulate your economy through different pulls and levers and things like that, just like we do. They can lower their borrowing rate significantly from where it is. I don't remember offhand, but it's high. So you could lower that. You could goose and print money and all that. But the difference there is we're still under this veil of capitalism and kind of this freedom of choice type deal and business as usual. Over there, that cat's out of the bag. They know that any policy tinkering that they do from a government level is going to quickly be taken back. You can get me once, shame on you, get me twice, shame on me type deal. If you keep following the government over there and saying, oh, they're going to be good for equities, or oh, they're going to be good for real estate, or oh, they're going to be good for energy, like I've gotten that wrong on the reopening and stuff too. At some point, I'm not saying they're a total collapse, but you talk about dead money and just like Intel needing to, you're just going to sit back in a corner and defend your terrible policies and your terrible results. That's fine. Bang that. Why would you want to waste any time and energy on that? I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that Canada is just going to continue. It's just one more dagger to them, honestly, to provoke them and get them upset, in my opinion, as the game of chess on the world goes around. But just curious on my point.
Yeah, and make no mistake, China is a massive market. This we're talking about China so much because it affects commodities. They stopped buying gold for the last 3 months. Remember, they're one of the largest buyers of gold for 18 months. And are they going to raise money? Are they going to, again, to stem the bleeding? Could they sell some of their gold? You look at commodities in the copper market and how big it is, steel as well. We have our own steel producers and stuff like that. But, when I look at China, and this is one of the reasons why, which people might hate saying this, but when I see a Trump presidency, Trump is more of a businessman and ran businesses. I will look at it from a country perspective. China is a massive asset and could be a huge asset, and they are in trouble and struggling. Just like Intel. If you put it in Intel, they're struggling right now, right? Intel's doing bad. You can get activists go in there, clean house, and set the company up where you have growth going forward. With China being, the largest supplier of almost everything, at cheap costs, you're looking at rare earth metals, right? Critical to almost every technology product that they're in. And these guys control a massive amount of that. The deals that you could sign with China behind closed doors right now are massive, where it would benefit any country that does it. So, if everyone wants to follow step on your neck type thing, I get it. But, I wish we have a president or anyone that would come in there and look at it that way, because, man, we could own China right now. And we could have amazing deals. And again, it could be very, very good for our country. But again, if we're fighting and there's just all bullshit and, we're leaving it to the point where things are so bad, they may not have a choice but to invade Taiwan. When I went to National Security Seminar, I got to tell you, the military there, which is the key it's the graduating class for the colonels, hundreds of them, which are all going to go out to, and run their own bases and stuff like that, which is huge. And just sitting in that room with them, they really believe that's going to happen, which surprised the shit out of me. I'm saying, you really believe that? When you have no choice and you have Taiwan Semi controlling the biggest market on the planet right now, which is AI, where they develop the chips. I know they're trying to build fab plants other places. That's an area where, if you want to keep stepping on their throat, and you're going to leave them no choice but actually to go after Taiwan. And we really don't have the right to defend it, which is crazy. I know, I'm just saying that, when you look back at history, they have a pretty good claim, and us getting involved in something like that, we'll see. But when AI is at stake and you have the largest producer with the biggest secrets in the world, it is crazy. It is crazy to see what's going to go in Taiwan. And again, that adds added risk, which is about the markets. I wanted to turn a page because Zuckerberg came out and a lot of people knew this already. But he came out, and I don't know, was this response to Jim Jordan or questioning and stuff like that?
I'm assuming it was a response, yeah, because he wrote a letter to whatever one that Jordan chairs and stuff, committee.
Yeah, and basically saying that the White House pressured Meta to suppress information. And holy shit. I mean, we kind of knew this with the Twitter files, but think about this road that we're going to go down now, and how Zuckerberg coming out. He said this, I think, with an interview. Who did he interview with? I forget, where he mentioned this. But now he wrote like an official letter about it. And you could speculate what that means in terms of, does he think that maybe, he wants to get a good side if Trump presidency wins? I read stories on it, whatever. I don't know. But more importantly, if the government did this, right, and they suppressed, I would like to know, because we got suppressed on YouTube when we had great information on COVID from leading doctors that were emailing us, and something I'm very proud of, where it had nothing to do with stocks. We were trying to save lives. Because I have 2 daughters, and just knowing statistics and people on the front line was amazing. But, that information, what was suppressed? I mean, did you suppress information that turned out to be factual? And if it wasn't suppressed, would it have saved lives? We know that X and Meta were pressured by the White House now to suppress information. What are the social media platforms? I mean, did you really just keep it to those 2? Was it YouTube? Obviously Snap, LinkedIn. Did TikTok not fall in line? Is that the real reason why the White House is doing everything in its power to shut down this site? And again, National Security Seminar, they were saying, listen, we got really great information showing how China steals our data. But I mean, they could look at all the businesses that are in America that do business there. I mean, you're looking at Levi's, you're looking at Nike, you're looking at Starbucks. What about Temu? What about Shein? What about a lot of these companies that we download the apps? They could do that. If you're really going to shut down TikTok, you have to shut them all down if you really believe that. Why is this specific TikTok? Because it was kind of a free platform. It was one place I know that I could see Putin speeches, Xi speeches, and I want to see them. I want to see what these people are saying, and we're suppressed from seeing that for some reason. Why? I want to know how crazy these guys are. My own eyes, my own ears. But, it's not a stretch considering how hard the White House went after Elon Musk, saying he's a threat to national security. They went after him when he released the Twitter files. What media companies and networks did the White House pressure? About COVID, about the Hunter Biden laptop, about 2020 election. I mean, you have to assume, it's like if someone's lying about one thing, you have to assume that they're lying about everything, right? That's normal reaction for people. That's how I would treat a business. If I hire someone, they're lying, I'm thinking they lied about everything once I catch them. I think Democrats, Republicans deserve answers to these questions, because that's a very slippery slope. And to me, that was very, very big news. We kind of knew a lot of it, but for him to come out really with that letter, holy shit. I mean, it can't be limited to just them and X. It's probably, if you have access to that and you're pressuring, I wonder what pressure actually means. Like, what kind of pressure? What do you mean? What do you think he meant by pressuring? What does that mean? How do you think they pressured him? I like to say that they definitely
to a certain extent. Have you seen what happened in France with the Telegram CEO?
Yeah.
That's what happens. The way you get a billionaire's attention is you take away their freedom to travel. Telegram CEO has almost 1 billion users, popular in Russia. You can't say that. That's a swear word, especially in finance. He's detained. I don't know if he's in jail. He's detained for 90-some hours, which is the longest they can hold, they being France, can hold somebody without charging them. Daniel Creech thinks that there's no coincidences, again, in politics. Read this letter. It's a short letter. 2 telling things he said. Like I said, our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to the pressure from any administration in either direction. And we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. Coincidence, Frank, that we have an election coming up here in just a couple months? I think not. That means he's getting pressured right now, enough to the point where he put this out there for public opinion. I'm sure it was in a response to Chairman Jordan. Admitting that, yes, everybody with a brain actually knows that this was already happening. However, it is key because you have one of the most powerful people doing this. This is such a 180 from him, and it's kind of a pattern. When President Trump the assassination attempt happened, Zuckerberg did some comments or an interview talking about how, man, it's hard not to like that or get kind of motivated by that. That was a big turning point. Remember, this is a guy that kicked the, at the time, sitting president off of the platform for free speech. Yeah. It's not election interference. It's not anything. It's just, we're doing it because there's, it shows you how twisted and the insider deals there are. It's actually pathetic, but I have to give you credit where credit is due. I think Zuckerberg is one of the scariest left-wing goofy people out there. However, this is a huge step in the right direction. This makes me, if I were a stock picker, which I am at sometimes, Frank, I would actually buy a little bit of Meta right here, even though it's at 52-week highs. The user base, even if they can't admit it and they don't admit it in polls through fear of getting yelled at and called a racist and all this kind of stuff in our media, if you actually Elon Musk and X is doing fantastic. Ignore what you hear. Look at the user base. Look at what's going on there. If the user base gets a hint that the people at the top are pro free speech and getting back to this pro independence, there's no way that's bad for business. And these are the most connected, foul-mouthed people there are. I'm having fun there. I don't know if he's foul-mouthed, but yeah, I really like this stock. I mean, quickly looking at it, gross margins are around 80%. Net margins are about 40 or over 30%. It's got no debt to worry about. It's generated over $30 billion in free cash flow over the last 12 months. Mm-hmm. This is not this is a buy and forget stock. And any momentum that you get energizing your user base here to think that you're more fair or actually, heaven forbid, pro-American. Holy hell, that's fantastic. So there's your free tip. That not that you need it, but pay attention to this direction of CEOs like this, and don't think that old Zuckerberg is a little nervous about putting, even though he's in great shape and he does whatever combat he does.
MMA stuff, yeah.
MMA stuff, yeah. I wouldn't mess with him. I'm sure he could kick my ass. But he's just as worried about getting detained over there by them pointy shoes wearing people across the pond.
I love your take on this. I have to say, when you're looking at Meta as a stock, I mentioned, 3 of the largest stocks and what they're trading at, whether it's Nvidia, you're looking at Microsoft, you're looking at Apple, all in 30 times. You're looking at Meta is trading at 22 times forward earnings. That's a very steep discount to the rest of these guys. It has a $1.3 trillion market cap, which may seem crazy, but a lot of these companies have $2 trillion market caps. And these guys are growing. These guys are growing much, much faster. They're firing on all cylinders. Just every single part of their business that you looked at last quarter was so massive growth. It's just they're kicking ass. They really are kicking ass right now. So
and they have optionality. They could always scale back some of the investments they're doing and make earnings, go through the roof. They're still going to grow earnings. Capital IQ has them at least 14% for the next couple of years. I mean, it's just an amazing company. And now they're not as crazy woke and stupid as they once were. So it's even better.
We've seen a lot of companies come out of that. Even Harley Davidson. You've seen a lot of companies saying, okay, we got to be Disney said they were going to do it, but they really haven't. So hopefully that they do it, and you probably see that stock go a little bit higher. It's just, but again, stuff that we have to talk about. Sometimes I get emails about this saying, Frank, this is bullshit. What are you listening to? What are you watching? Look, I try to watch everything across the board and be fair with this. I just think the Democratic Party right now is not the old Democratic Party, which, they used to argue with Republicans and they used to go out for a beer and it was fine. I wasn't, Clinton, I thought was great. I thought, Obama was one of the best speakers. Holy shit. When you talk about charisma and stuff like that, I mean, whether you hate the guy or not, it just, I didn't feel like there was a threat. I felt like, like right now what's going on with, just hiring someone that doesn't want to get in front of the media is a little scary right now. And we should know more, right? It's our job to know more of who we're going to vote for. But it is going to matter. It's going to matter to see, who wins the election. It's definitely going to matter with your portfolios, and we talk about it. But that's significant when you're seeing a lot of companies switch. I want to see if we track the performance of, enough of this, right? It was like so much woke shit going into these companies that it's now you see this pullback, and you should, because you don't want to go far left and you don't want to go far right. And I think the majority of 80% of this country is kind of in the middle and could support either way. But it is pretty crazy how far left that we've seen the Democratic Party go, and they're not hiding it. Like I said, I mean, with Waltz and the current Democratic Party that's running on this ticket is leftish, and I think that scares a few people. So we'll see. I mean, we saw Kamala as expected. It's kind of like with John McCain, right? When he hired Palin to be vice president, when he announced that, you saw big momentum, and then it just tailed off. The same things, we see right now, where the momentum was up. She was winning a lot of the polls, and now the polls are showing Donald Trump winning. But she's going to have to get in front of a camera and talk more about her policies and stuff like that. But we'll see what happens, because it is going to matter with your portfolios, definitely. And you see that even with recent. I mean, look at solar stocks, right? I mean, you mentioned that, Daniel. I mean, look at some of these solar stocks and how annihilated that they've gotten. I mean, is that showing that maybe you think Trump's going to win, he's going to pull out of that funding, but some of these names are down incredibly, right? I mean, holy shit.
Yeah, you've gotten a lot of bankruptcies. I thought we were saving this for premium tomorrow.
Well, I just mentioned, we don't have to mention the stocks and stuff. We'd like to get more
but you've seen several, let me see, Solar. Sorry, I had a good Solar Insure. I'll talk more about this tomorrow, but Solar Insure has a list of a lot of bankruptcies. I believe there's over 100 in 2023. Mm-hmm. But it is telling, if you have a president that's not going to be as accommodating or spend as much money. Some of this money's already spent, passed in bills, so it's just kind of how long does it take to kind of filter through the economy. But some of those jobs, you look at a lot of have been delayed. A lot of EV battery plants, you've talked about Ford and GM scaling back on the battery plants and or EVs. That's all going to be a part of the energy play going forward. And then what I want people to focus on is, hey, if we're being promised all this clean energy coming online, if that doesn't happen or you have delays, you're just not going to do without energy. That means that you're not getting away from oil and gas. I'll talk a little bit about ExxonMobil pissed off everybody over the weekend, Frank, and I can't wait to tell you more about it and why. And why not only are they right, they are more right than right.
Yeah, and we do this on our premium podcast, Wall Street Plug Premium, and we highlight lots of ideas. We pick one idea every week, almost every week, and we put it in our portfolio. It's a trading idea, which is really cool, but it's a really, really good product. So if you're interested in that, just go to our website. I think we for now, we're charging $1 just to try it, and it's $10 a month, but we're going to be raising those prices on those. And, again, getting into individual stocks and more of those, we're going to talk tomorrow about just the retail industry. I mean, there's easy trades in the retail industry. And even today, we're seeing Foot Locker up 12%, down 12% after reporting decent numbers, but, it's near its 52-week high. And yet you're seeing some companies go a lot higher. VF Corp is one of the ones names in our portfolio we recommended. Just total steep sell-off, saw insider buying. They've been going through inventory problems for over a year, and just a matter of time before they fixed them. And we got in good, and we're up a lot in that stock. And now we see a stock that reported okay earnings, and that stock's up tremendously from 13 to 18. Again, that's in the portfolio. And going to mention also talk more about specialty companies in the defense industry. AVAV is up 14%. They just announced a big contract. This is another Curzio venture holding, the longest holding in our portfolio since 2017. We're up over 650% on it, I think. The reason why it's still in is because I still think the stock's going to go a lot higher. But if you're looking at defense companies, the big defense companies is just so bureaucratic. There's a massive need. And you're seeing a lot of these companies start to break through with these specialty defense companies that are getting these contracts from the DoD outside of the majors are starting to do great. And that's why you're seeing Palantir sign so many contracts and the stock go higher and higher. It's almost the industry for AI, and everyone has to go into them to actually, learn more. And that's why they're seeing such huge contracts. I told you, it reminds me of Netflix when Netflix was the industry, right? And everyone's looking at it. Wow, if you compare Netflix early on to cable companies, it's super expensive. Well, it's not super expensive when Netflix is the industry for streaming and everyone's trying to break into that. Okay, then it's different. I see the same thing with Palantir, and we just recommended another company in Curzio Venture Opportunity that just went out, and another specialty defense company that's just seeing contracts galore and revenue, sales, everything go through the roof. So it is a good industry. It's not widely covered, but AVAV, I mean, I hope a lot of people made a lot of money. It's over 200. I think we recommended it in the low 20s. And again, I see that happening for a lot of these stocks. It's just a sector that's undercovered, and man, they are getting lots of contracts, revenue growth, earnings growth, and that's what we're going to cover tomorrow in the podcast. Other than that, Daniel, are you ready for football?
No.
You're not an
no.
fantasy football.
How do I say this? I got a question for you regarding football and ownership. I'll save it for tomorrow. But and last thing, we do have
AeroVironment. You can't save it for tomorrow.
We can. AeroVironment is also in Dollar Stock Club, and we're up a little over 35% since April of this year.
Yeah, that's so great.
So it's a good trading stock and a good holding stock.
You remember my friend just told me a story. He's like, yeah, I have this production company I'm starting, and we're going to launch a movie, and it's great, and we're getting funding and this and that. I'm like, well, what's it about? It's like, I can't tell you. I'm like, what the fuck did you waste my time for 40 minutes telling me about, why? That was good. That was a good tease. I got a great question I'm going to ask tomorrow. But my fantasy football draft is tonight, which I'm excited about. A lot of drafts have already taken place. A little bit of a different format with two starting quarterbacks. So you have to draft a little differently. But I am interested in seeing my team, the Eagles. On paper, they look fantastic. But man, they really collapsed last year. And let's see if they got rid of their coaches. Let's see if that's going to benefit them, but they definitely showed up the defense. Their offense is great. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have an unbelievable year. It takes a lot of pressure off Jalen Hurts. So, but there are a lot of good teams. Look at Detroit, Chicago. There's a lot of good teams that haven't been good for a while that look really good, and I still think Detroit should have went a lot further last year. But football season is back, the greatest sport ever, and I think it starts, a week ahead, but I think it starts next Thursday, I believe, and then Friday, which you're going to have to pay Peacock just to watch those two streams. where are they playing? The Eagles, they're playing in Brazil, right? They're playing in Brazil, I think. The Packers, they're playing in Brazil, which should be an amazing game. Should be a lot of fun. And I like to talk football a lot, so it should be really, really cool. But guys, questions, comments, we'll wait for you. FrankCurzioResearch.com. Daniel
at CurzioResearch.com.
Okay, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Love this episode of Wall Street Unplugged? I think you'll really love Wall Street Unplugged Premium. The Wall Street Unplugged Premium is my members-only podcast where I dive even deeper into this week's events. Well, I'll do even more than tell you what's moving these markets. I'll tell you specifically what moves you can make today. So this is going to be about trading. Put big money in your pocket right away due to the inconsistencies I see daily in the market. I'm talking about specific investment ideas I'm recommending and tracking each week that I believe will be impacted directly by everything I just talked about today. Plus, you're going to get the chance to go even further down the rabbit hole with me and my co-host, who's Daniel Creech, as we discuss which of these week's trends could turn into massive windfalls. The big trends that we see lurking on the horizon, also the news we're picking up from our network of insiders, which has gotten bigger and bigger thanks to you and so many people listening to this podcast in over 100 countries. And you get a chance to talk to me directly in my special Ask Me Anything Q&A session. All of that and a lot more, like premium interviews with world leaders in finance, technology, industry, and politics. This is all part of Wall Street Unplugged Premium. And becoming a member is super simple and super cheap. So head on over to WSUoffer.com to check it all out. Sign up today, and you won't miss a thing. That's WSUoffer.com.
Wall Street Unplugged is produced by Curzio Research, one of the most respected financial media companies in the industry. The information presented on Wall Street Unplugged is the opinion of its host and guests. You should not base your investment decisions solely on this broadcast. Remember, it's your money and your responsibility.